I'm here in Doha, Qatar at WISE 2015, which is the World Innovation Summit for Education. It's the premier annual meeting on education and global development that brings together heads of state and influential experts to discuss innovations to improve education worldwide. There are over 2,000 participants at this year's gathering, which is the 7th installment of the conference. This year's theme is titled Investing for Impact, and the topics are clustered around 3 main areas. The first is education as a part of the Sustainable Development Goals. Second, education and the economy. So a focus on inclusive education and the ripple effect that expanded levels of education, not just higher education, but the basic levels of primary and secondary education have on economic development. And the third is the I in WISE, innovation. So new ways of delivering education, both big and small. The SDG focus has really stood out as the first among the topics on the agenda, promoting the centrality of education to inclusive and sustainable development. Formally, the topic of education is indoctrinated in SDG 4, which is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. But a key message being delivered here is how the pursuit of expanded and inclusive education is the means to achieve a host of other sustainable development goals, such as zero poverty and reduced inequalities. A subset within that discussion, and something that is factored large here, is the issue of gender inequality. Gender inequality is pressing in developing country education. 62 million girls worldwide are not in school, and in developing countries, much of this is attributable to the issue of early marriage and child brides. 15 million girls every year get married before the age of 18, and once they enter that phase, they are essentially shut out from pursuing further education. I interviewed Mabel van Orange, who heads the international NGO Girls Not Brides. She said that in 26 countries, girls have a greater chance of getting married before the age of 18 than enrolling in secondary school. US First Lady Michelle Obama delivered a keynote address on the conference's opening day. She noted that, quote, "It's not an accident that we've reached gender parity in primary but not secondary education. By the time a woman reaches secondary school age, she tends to fall victim to various biases of society that hold her back." So the discussion here is focused on collaboration between governments and civil society to educate girls and keep them in school longer in order to minimize their risk of early marriage. I spoke with Julia Gillard, the former Prime Minister of Australia and the current chair of the board of the Global Partnership for Education. She estimates that achieving SDG 4 on education will require $39 billion more per year until 2030 than current investment levels in education. So that's a funding gap of $39 billion annually. To bridge that gap, it will require investments of all sorts, but particularly from the private sector. Innovative financial instruments such as development impact bonds or charity bonds will need to become the norm, as well as expanded partnerships and investments by private sector companies to train students and equip them with vocational skills. $39 billion might sound like a lot, but broken down, it comes out to 14 cents per day per child, according to Gillard. Very timely with current developments, the issue of education and conflict took center stage here at WISE 2015. The message that education itself is under attack has been highlighted continuously. The civil war in Syria and civil conflict elsewhere in the world directly bombard schools and educational institutions. And of course, the flood of refugees it produces creates an entire generation of uneducated youth. Antonio Guterres, UN High Commissioner for Refugees, addressed the conference. He estimated that only 1 in 2 refugee children goes to primary school and only 1 in 4 goes to secondary school. It was around this topic that there was frankly more criticism than constructive solutions being offered. There was a resounding consensus that the global community has been failing refugee children, and there needs to be greater investment in refugee education, but policies on refugee relocation itself have fallen miserably short, and that global leaders are still a far ways from devising a concrete plan for educating refugee children. It has been a passionate discussion the past 2 days here at WISE 2015. The event was headlined by US First Lady Michelle Obama and Sheikha Moza bint Nasser, the mother of Qatar's emirate, both delivering keynote addresses. The main takeaway perhaps being that investing in and partnering in education equates to advancing most, if not all, of the agenda items of the SDGs. Stay tuned to Devex for more coverage on partnerships that include inclusive education.